Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to the weekly Noyantis Usergroup meeting. Today is the 9th of November 2020 and myself and John are your hosts. As always, if anyone's got any queries or questions and any queries, questions, ideas, solutions, feel free to raise your hand, we'll get the mics opened and we'll cover the content as normal. Okay.
We're looking at your Skype, by the way.
Oh, right, okay. Then I need to switch. Which one are we looking at now?
Wait for it to switch.
Can't see the actual screen. Where the option is. Try that one. That better?
Yep. It says go to webinar, connected to go to webinar.
Nope, that's not the one.
It's still not the one. Still says connected to go to webinar. Wait, oh, there we go. There it is. There's Clarion.
All right. Oh, that was strange because it was set to that one to start with. Not quite sure what happened there. Okay, so we can see Clarion.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Right. So we're looking for questions. And now I have got an update which is in progress. Now I know Alex is here and he's definitely been waiting for this for a long time. It's been a long time in the dev. Let me just open the mic to Alex. Hi, Alex. Put you on the spot there.
Hey there. Good afternoon. Good morning.
Good. Yep. Same here. Good afternoon and good morning.
Yeah.
So yes, you've been waiting for this. It's regarding the DockingPane. Now we always cover updates and so on, and there's a small incremental update to the. Well, I say it's a small incremental update to the report control. Not related to what we're going to cover in a second, but it does include a nice speed enhancement regarding calculating totals and the fact that you might not be using total fields, but you'll still get one hell of a speed enhancement out of it, especially on larger data sets. John, I know you this would actually benefit yourself because the code that you've got there, it would have still been attempting to calculate totals when you weren't using them. So if you've got 10, 20,000 rows, it was going to go and read all 10, 20,000 rows, even though it didn't need to. So that's that. So that's about to be released, but there was another update required, and it was regarding the use of the report control, mainly the BrowseEnhancer, but being used inside of a DockingPane, which leads us on to Alex and Alex's question. So for those who remember quite a while ago, there was Alex has got a legacy app. A Clarion app in legacy, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. And we did quite a lot of work on the BrowseEnhancer where it was basically loading too much data and you wouldn't get the bottom row as we've got there now. It would basically, you'd get like a phantom, you get more records loaded than you can physically see on the screen. So of course the bar would just disappear for quite a while. Now we rectified that and we went back and forth, and then ultimately via these webinars we came about that you actually are using it inside of a DockingPane, which of course I didn't realize. So the true trigger of it is actually the DockingPane itself, but there was changes needed to both sides. Luckily, all these changes we did to make this work, and it is so much better, were all actually required still, which I thought they were for your scenario. So now we just close that. This, by the way, anyone just watching this video for the first time and seeing the products for the first time, this is very much a very rough and ready dev application. it's something that would never see the light of day normally. It's just a test application. So yeah. So here is the BrowseEnhancer, and that is hosted. So we've got a Clarion list. It's got a BrowseEnhancer ReportControl BrowseEnhancer attached to it, which is like yours. Is it? That's correct so far?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And then you have how many panes? It doesn't really matter how many panes you have, but you've got multiple panes, one of which is using the ReportControl, correct? The BrowseEnhancer ReportControl. So as you can see here now, there is the ReportControl, and it's got 21, well, basically, it's got the correct rows loaded, and so on. Now, if we was to resize, what it is going to do, because it's having to reset, okay, because that's just how Clarion, that's a legacy browse, not really the ABC. That's a side effect of the Clarion legacy browse. When it resets, it always takes you to the top, which I personally find it a little strange, but unless anybody knows of a setting in the legacy browse to turn that feature off, I find it a little strange. But so basically, you're still going to get that. But now, if I was to, let's pick that pane up, let's dock it underneath that, we can see it's shrunk. So 13, 14, and it will still respond as you want it to respond. We make that pane smaller. So I'm going to make it so we can see all of the exante, but we can't see we can only see part of the record below. So if I let go, there you go, it's reloaded. And of course, you only get the bottom row, which is exactly what you want. Make it a little bigger, and so on. And if we then bring it to the side, it will reload accordingly. Let's get a better example. Actually, we'll put it back down there. So we've only got 3 rows, and then we'll actually have it floating. Put it back, maybe float that one. So there's the full one loaded underneath. Float that back again. So basically, it's taken quite a bit of work, if you want the truth. Quite a bit of work, because we put a lot of the code into the actions of this pane. So if we resize that pane, we can act accordingly and reload it. If we bring it over here, we can act and reload that. All brilliant so far. But of course, that might not be the pane you're doing it on. You might be working on this pane here, which does have ramifications. So if I was to pick this pane up and move this pane to the right, even though I'm not touching the pane which is holding the BrowseEnhancer, the BrowseEnhancer still needs to reload its content. So I've not interacted with this pane at all, but because of changes to other panes, it does have ramifications on the BrowseEnhancer pane. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's in pretty good shape. There's been so much testing and so many, like I say, a couple of different attempts at it in different ways. I've just removed the code actually. In fact, it was a bit tidy up, but basically, just to show you, I'll undo some of my removes and make sure I can redo them in a second. But basically, I was just going through preparing this for release now, so I can pass it across to yourself. But what we did do, you can see under here, different actions, if you will, on the pane would calculate what it needed to do. Let me jump forward. There we go. So we would have different actions on the pane, and we would calculate whether we needed to resize, because it's not just a resize which can cause it. Floating a pane can cause it. Unpinning a pane can cause it. Pinning a pane can cause it, and so on and so forth. So there's all these actions on the particular pane in question. And then we was doing this code on our selected pane. But of course, that just won't cut it, because as we say, and let's redo my code now, put it all back in there. It's not just a matter of that one pane. So now we've introduced a new method called resize pane contents. And that actually will trigger upon the resize client. Now, the resize client event is a callback event from the control itself, the docking pane, and that will trigger. We used to have code in here in the past, but we have to be very careful in this. You don't want to slow the overall control down, but that will trigger when a resize has occurred, regardless of which pane has done it. So me folding that pane back, of course, has resized that. Where is that pane now? There it is. So let's bring that back and so on, that kind of thing. Me bringing that down here has resized the pane above. Me resizing the pane down at the bottom will resize the one above, and so on and so forth. So the point being is we couldn't just trap all the code just on one pane, which was our the early approach to it. It soon became apparent, especially in a window where you could have lots of panes, and they don't necessarily, this might be, for example, the third pane along. You might have left, middle, and right. Your report control could be on the right pane, and you could pin back the left pane. So the middle one has resized, which means the right one has resized, and so on and so forth. So we had to make sure we took a more global, general approach. So that's the big update, what's coming in there. Your typical scenario is there any more tests you can think that you'd like me to perform here now? Obviously, I'm going to send this beta straight across to you afterwards. So, like I said, we're just tidying up comment code because you don't want stuff like that in there prior to release. So, is there any more tests you can think of, Alex, that you want me to perform before sending it to you?
No, honestly, from what I've seen, it looks like you've covered all the bases. And Andy, I know that a ton of work and research had to go into that on your part, and I really appreciate you.
No, it's well. That's thank you very much. It's well overdue, and yeah, tempered a bit, not fraught, but yeah, no, that sounds really wrong actually. But basically, yeah, there's been some comments back and forth, and I absolutely hate stuff like that. I really don't like stuff like that. I'll be honest, and so on. I just really want this. One, working, and two, release so you can get using it and then be much happier with it, and so on. There will be other updates to the report control and the docking panes and so on and so forth, but the bulk of the work, the what I consider the backbone of the work has now been done and pushed across to you, which is much better. There's still one more tidy up I've got to do on the docking pane before it goes gold, but it won't affect the one what I pass to you. So it's really just to do with closing of windows and so on, and that's really it. And that I do want to. I'm probably going to stick around after the webinar and finish that code off and so on. And it's all I'm more or less in that particular area where I was just then. Where are we? Here's the code. Just need to rework that code to make sure that when a pane is closing, it daisy chains onto the next pane and so on and so forth. And then we're good to go, which is a long overdue update. But this will go be wrapped up in a zip after this webinar and sent across to you. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy.
No problem. But you will require the. I'll send you exactly what you need. Don't worry. But basically, the main updates for you are the report control, because there's announcements in that to take a note of this. So now the report control. I need to tidy some of this code up as well. This is me playing about, as you can tell. But yes, you've got new methods now. So basically, we pass an event, and we've tried to call it pretty self-explanatory. It's an event docking pane client resized, which is the client area. The docking pane has been resized, and then it will, if it needs to, call its list resize and post an event size to itself. So ultimately, it's as though you on a Clarion window has resized a control, but you haven't actually done it. The docking pane has done it through the closing and the opening and the moving of the panes. So basically what we're doing is we're emulating you doing it on a Clarion window, but it's a CodeJock docking pane which is actually doing that and so on. So I'm fairly confident in that particular code. So all the work we did earlier was definitely still required. So it's been a long, hard slog, but I think we're there now, and that's the main thing.
Thanks, Andy. Am I
No.
correct that it'll
Oh, yeah.
require an update of the DockingPane class, the
You're gonna-
report class,
You'll get
the
a report.
equate file?
You'll get a report control. Basically, there'll be quite a bit. I'm not sure what you're on. I'll take a look at what the latest version. But basically, I'll probably send you back up your setup, as I always say to anybody applying the beta. But it's in, it's much better shape. But back up your setup. But I will probably send you a zip file of all the particular latest files and so on, just to be prudent, because there's changes to the report control class, there's changes to the core common class. There's changes to the DockingPane class. There's changes to the equates, so there's new equates in there. So yeah, so there's probably a minimum. There's going to be off the top of my head, there's quite a few files, so you'll need all those. There is one last. I don't know whether to attempt to do it or not. There's one setting you will need to do if it's being used. So we'll go to our DockingPane. So our example, legacy enhancer in DockingPane. We can see our browser enhancer here, and on the options tab, you have a new option. So the report control is hosted in a DockingPane. That needs to be ticked because the resizing is completely different depending on whether basically what its parentage is truly. So if it's a normal control on a Clarion window, and it's a list control that is, and it's being enhanced, then we can take charge of that, and we've got some things in the background to do that. But if it's in a DockingPane, then the Clarion list isn't actually in the pane, and our resizer control, which we have hidden, which you don't get to see, isn't in that pane. It's just the actual OCX itself. So that becomes the true master of the resizing strategy rather than the Clarion list and so on, or our resize control, our hidden resize control. So yeah, basically you need to have that ticked.
Andy, does
yeah.
this apply to, okay, you know how like in our app, we have a bunch of your report controls, only some of them are going to be the enhancer. The ones that are your regular report controls, does that also apply or only to the enhancer type?
No, you should really apply that. If it's that class. So yes, it's not just the enhancer; it's the report control in general, and that's because. Let's just go to our example. I think I had it somewhere before. Let's see an example. Could have sworn I had it open. Let me just open it again. So just general knowledge for everybody. So it's good knowledge to have anyway. So we've got a control, standard DockingPane. So now that happens to be a Clarion list. We've got a button. We've got a few buttons actually. That's fine. Or we'll go to the. We've got one which has various different controls. Where is it? Child, no. I thought there was one where we had lots of different controls. Oh, different there is. Can't see for looking. Lots of different controls. Now, basically, each one of these, that's a list box on a Clarion window. That happens to be a button. That's a checkbox, so on and so forth. Now, in a normal Clarion window, your resizing, if you've got Capesoft resize or Mike's resize or Clarion's resize, doesn't really matter. That will take the control, resize it as per what it's got to do, that kind of thing. Now, when you host that in a DockingPane, that's fine. It can see that the control has been resized, and it just puts it into the pane and basically makes it fit the pane anyway. So you can see that button. So the resizing of the control doesn't really come into it, if you will. There's a button, and that spin has just been made bigger. And if I make that, you can see that spin bigger and smaller accordingly, and so on. So the control is taking over the sizing, and so on. Now, let's fast forward that to, let's say that would be a report control. Not a BrowseEnhancer, just a report control, file loaded, manually loaded, whatever. That, just like the Clarion control, will take over the entire client area of that pane. So I'll just bring this out, and it would take over the client area of that pane, which is fine. The control knows how big it is, and it will display whatever information it can do in the visible area. Now, if we go to the BrowseEnhancer, because, especially with a page-loaded BrowseEnhancer, we basically hide the Clarion list control, or if it's a page-loaded, we show it, but it's only the width of the vertical scroll bar and so on. We then read its settings, enhance it, put it onto the screen, and it's that control that goes into the pane. But it's still the Clarion control which is controlling the loading and so on. So we need to make sure that that is resized in the background. So instead of the Clarion control or whatever the control being resized and then going into the pane and so on and so forth, all of a sudden it's the OCX now controlling the size from a loading point of view for Clarion rather than the other way around, if that makes sense. Normally it would be the Clarion list that would get resized, pass its new contents onto the report control, and visually display, what it needs to display. When it's in a docking pane, the control itself, the OCX, is the master, and that needs to start passing the sizing commands back through to the Clarion list. So it's the complete opposite. Now, to answer, I know we're a bit around the houses there, but to answer your question, if it's hosted in a pane, just have that ticked. So because ultimately the point of all that was I want the content was in the pane to take charge of the sizing and pass it on to the back end. So you definitely want it for browse enhancers, but it won't do any harm for normal report controls anyway. So if you take a general rule of thumb of it's being used in a pane, tick that box, then that's good. What I was just playing about with, and you can see there's a new equate for it. Where is it? Yeah, that's our new equate there. But I've also added another one, and it's DockingPane is parent. And what I'd like to do, and I was just playing about, but this won't hold up my beta to you. So, I'll get this passed through to you. But what I'd like to do is, as it's initializing, it will be able to read what its child is. So the pane, let's go back to the test example. That pane is initializing. It knows that the content is a report control browse enhancer. So that could pass an event through to the Clarion list ultimately to the browse enhance OCX, I should say, the report control, pass an event to it to say you're going to be used in a docking pane and save you having to tick. And now I can do that, but I'm not sure whether that would have an effect on the very initial loading, because with Clarion, you don't get too much control of the initialization process as in the order. So if I have two controls both initializing at from a template code point of view the same priority, it comes down to the order that they were added rather than me controlling it. And we have our content in our templates all initializing at set priorities. That's for a reason, because we have other controls like report controls initializing before a docking pane and certain controls initializing before a command bar. And that's because that content can be used in a docking pane and could be used in a command bar, but it can't be the other way around. So we have all our controls initializing like content type controls, report controls, property grids, things like that, all initializing at the same priority. And it does mean that I think we might just get a timing issue potentially, where depending on the order that you've added them to your screen, we might not get them initializing. You might just get a bit of flicker on the initialization. So I'm going to do some tests, but if the worst case scenario is, I'm going to leave that checkbox in there for now, and you'll just have to tick it if it's being used in DockingPane. It's not the end of the world, it's just a tick box. So yes, it's a control that it's a setting you'll have to apply. But if I can automate it, I will try.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the beta I send you, do tick it. Don't be surprised if it works out for me that I can calculate it for you. Then brilliant. I'll calculate it automatically, and the tick box will just disappear in the next upgrade, and so on. So the worst case scenario is in your app you'll have to go through and tick that setting on your browse enhancers.
That's really not a problem at all. I don't mind
No,
that at all.
and that's it. It's just for our tests and for you to be able to continue your dev and get your update out and so on, you know, it's really no big problem. Going forward, if I can automate it, obviously it's better, you know. But yeah, we'll just have to see.
Okay, thank you.
Okie dokie. Any other questions? I haven't seen the questions box. Let's take a look. We do. Alejandro. You solved the problem with DockingPane and Calendar Pro. Ish. Okay. That's a bit of a vague answer. Let's open up Alejandro's mic. Hi, Alejandro.
Hello, Andy. How
Hi.
are you?
How are you? I'm good. You?
Very good. Very good. Very. I want to say very well and good. Very well. Thank you. I missed the word.
So the answer to answer your question, the question so everybody else understands it is the DockingPanes is a bit of an animal, to say the least, and you can have any piece of content in there. Now we use it, as you've seen in our applications. We use it for various different pieces of content, but there can be. Let's just open up good old Schedule It, which we use quite a lot. There is an issue at the moment, and it's where the calendar is used. So that isn't in a DockingPane, so the calendar's just there. If the calendar's used in a DockingPane, and I think the syntax edit has the same issue, then the very first click, you see it go dead small, like the size of 10 pixels by 10 pixels, and it goes to the top left, and so on. So no, I haven't fixed it at the moment, but, and here's a but, this code which I've got here, which is related to the changes I've just been mentioning to you. Let me just jump forward, not there. In fact, it's not even in that, sorry. It's in there. The resize of the pane content, I'm explicitly going through here. I can see what type of content I've got, so I know if that pane has a Clarion procedure, if that pane has a Clarion window control, if it has an n-bit wrapper, and it also if it's got a Kojot wrapper. And inside of there, I know what subtype it's got and what its handle is. Sorry, its control is. So I can see its subtype, and I'm doing the explicit check there for BrowseEnhancer and passing the message on, which we've just seen. I'm going to do that, basically expand that case there. So if it's a calendar, it will do that fix for you automatically and record the fact that it's done the fix.
Perfect.
So, and the same with the syntax edit, of course. So there are workarounds. John and I've done some workarounds, and I know me and you, Alejandro, we've played about with some workarounds and so on. And it's only really to do with that first click on the calendar, and then to do a resizing of panes afterwards. But this exact approach will give me a nice doorway into fixing that. So it's all automated.
Did you remember that you made me a fix with a workaround, but it doesn't work for me in my application? So do you think that this update could be fixed that?
Remind me, I remember the workaround because we passed it around a couple of times, didn't we, back and forth. Remind me again what the steps were and when it failed. I know the initialization, you know, so just remind me again.
Yes, when you initialize the procedure, okay,
Yep,
make the first click over the calendar. So it's disappear, and if you resize or do something, it's come back to
back to life. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So, but if you want, I can send you an example with the behavior that I have.
Please, and I'll use this new, this new updated version to fix that example. So we shouldn't have to put any code into the example. We can try and transfer the code across into this. So yes, please, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent, very good. Like I say, I
Thank you, Andy.
want no problem. I want the DockingPane and the report control to be released as a matter of urgency. Then next, exciting news actually, and he's not here actually, typical. But one of the users has been waiting for drag and drop for the report control. Now the report control itself does support drag and drop, but that's really control to control, and it's all the logic and all the commands and basically everything of it is built into the control itself, as in the CodeJock report control. What we want to do is still give you that kind of functionality, but have it so it also works with other drag and drop objects, i.e. Clarion controls. So you could drag from a Clarion button or a Clarion list or Clarion whatever, drop it into the report control, and vice versa, pick from the report control and drop it into somewhere else within a Clarion control. Maybe drop it into a Clarion text box or a Clarion button. Maybe you pick a record, drag it over a button or a region, and then you automatically execute a command for that particular record. So we want it to work like so. Somebody's bumped that up the queue, which is fine. That's it's more important to them. So they've actually asked for a few changes, and they're willing to sponsor those changes, if you will. So that is already. It's on paper in the planning process, and that will come in the next release. There'll be a beta, so there'll be a small interim release. We're hand in hand with the DockingPane, but then the next big release for the report control will be the drag and drop, and it will support, as we said, control to control, control to list, and control to Clarion, that kind of thing, and from. And we're also going to allow you to marry up how you want to do the drag and drop if it's a report control to report control. So what we mean by that is if you have a report control of, let's say, 10 columns A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have another report control which has got A, B, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever, it doesn't really matter, different shapes. What it'll be able to do is match on the column definitions and let you drop the contents. So to add, so you'll be able to select any number of records within your source report control, drop them into another report control, and where it can find the match, as in the column definitions, and we'll give you options on the matching algorithm and so on, then it will populate the new rows into the report control automatically for you. So it should be quite powerful from a drag and drop point of view. And of course, that same content will be able to be dropped on, as I say, maybe a button or maybe a Clarion list, or it doesn't really matter, AN other control, and you'll be able to interrogate what's been dropped and do your code accordingly. So it should be really flexible. So yeah, you can stay tuned for that. You can start seeing that take shape by next week's webinar, which would be quite nice. Okay, do we have any other questions? Nope, all is quiet. It's going to be a very, very quiet, very short one today then, if that's the case. I'll leave it a couple of more minutes.
Andy,
Yeah.
there is one thing, since we have, if you have a minute, there's one thing
Of course.
I wanted to go over, I don't know if you prefer to do it in private or in the meeting, regarding the character. And I know you sent us a response, but I have something to add to that. You know, on the keyboard,
Yeah, I
to
know
the left of the one,
yeah,
this like
this,
squiggly
let me
code.
open a new this character. So you've got, if I go across the top keyboard so everybody understands, it's like a QWERTY keyboard, if you will. You've got your numbers, as you would expect, and then to the left of the one is like that special character. It looks like an apostrophe, but it's the wrong way around, if you will. So that character there.
And here's the thing. Let me just describe the bug and how to reproduce it. And I know your response, I remember your response at it, but here's the thing. I found a solution and I just wanted to share it with you and see if you could take a look at it and see what you think of the solution that I provided.
Okay. Well, just prior to that, can we explain what the thing is for other people? Because
yes,
people watch this on recording. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a regular Noyantis browse control, and let's say you load the records in there, okay, when the screen opens. Now, let's say you go to your database and you find any record in the file in any one field, just take one record, and in the very first character, you enter that character. So let's say you have a last name Smith, and in front of the Smith, you put that character.
Yeah, so it's
then
like that.
When you load the browse, as soon as that record hits, it'll crash the program. Okay, and the reason is because I understand the OCX sends and like a object ID, and it starts with that character, and you look for that. So
well, it's not so much the OCX; it's soft velocity's usage of that character. So the OCX will return you an object ID. Let's just open Clarion Help. Hopefully they give you some information on this. Could be proved wrong. Let's have a look at prop object. Yeah, prop. Something like a prop object. So basically, when you are, this isn't CodeJock. This is anything, any kind of comp control, and this is soft velocity's how they handle a raw object. So let me just jump down to the raw object so people know what we're referring to. There you go, something like that. So, let's go past it. Can I see what the object is? Sorry, I was just trying to find the actual prop. Oh, there we go. Prop object. Yeah, okay. So that gets you the dispatch interface. So an example, when we've done this many times over, we open up here. If we go straight to the start of the report control, use this as an example. Oh, sorry, I'm on property grid. It doesn't matter. It's exactly the same. So let's go straight to the start of the property grid. Okay, so there's a property grid, and we can add a category, and we can do various things. Now, if we add a category and we wanted to get an object back, so we wanted to get that, let's stick with that add category. Okay, so that add category would return you a grid item. Okay, so it says a property grid item. It will return you. So there's a grid item, and we can get to all the methods and the properties and so on of that grid item. But the thing is, that grid item, from a soft velocity standard point of view, would come back something like that, an address, and they prefix the first character to that special character. Is it called a caret, something like that? But yeah, basically that is the character we're on about. It's special meaning within soft velocity, and it's an object. And that object can be at any level of any control, but that's what's coming back. So back over to you.
Okay, so I have, so my test program, I obviously, for a regular Noyantis browse that opens, I took a well, here's what was happening. We have some hotels out there that are running live that would crash. And we would figure out this and that, and then we would find that there'd be like one record where it would have that. Now, there are some Latino-speaking clients. We have places where it's sort of like there's some last names and even street names where it's common to have that as a first character.
Is
But
that
also
right?
once in a while, it would just happen. Maybe someone entered it and it would crash, you know. And obviously, parsing the code all the time would be, you know, for every field would be time consuming. However, so I entered it. I took such a record and I was able to reproduce the crash.
Mhm.
But I found a solution. I just sent you an email. It's in your common class. Take a look. I went and took a method you have. I just sent you an email, and I
Just
added like one line of code. I also added a stop message there, and you can look what I'm doing, and that fixes it. And once I changed that, the problem went away. It wouldn't crash anymore. So look at the stop. See, before you had if, that, and then what comes after the else, but I added that if statement there right above the stop, and then I put a space in front of it. Again, I'm not even changing data, just for those fields. I'm putting a space where it's the first character. I'm putting a space in front of it as it appears, you know, in the browse. No one would notice that. Not changing the data, and that works. It cancels. And I see you already parsing here through, so I'm not really adding a lot of extra work code-wise. So I found that this is a pretty decent, I think, solution to fix that. But I wanted your take on it, and maybe need some time to think on it. But there's an idea I just thought,
Well,
because
no,
that's always fold.
the I think in God, I can't remember, but I know in the response back. I gone on to there. Sorry, I need to bring that back in. I'm working from home. I'm going to self-isolate for a couple of weeks. I'm allowed back to the office on Wednesday, and I can't wait. But yes, basically, so we're actually remoted onto my machine here. Now, I think in the response I just said we actually we check for that from a speed point of view. So let me search in our code for that. So you can see here. That's probably not a rubbish. Let me. What's I doing
See,
here?
at first I tried trying to fix something in this class, but it's just too many times, and I couldn't.
Well,
And it's not very
chances
clear.
are,
But
yeah, chances are you probably stand a better chance of breaking it than doing it.
exactly.
Truth, yeah.
But I noticed later when you process the data, you send it to that one method that's in the common class. And I looked, and if I check it in there and remove it, then you won't ever think your all your other stuff doesn't ever think that it's an object, and it didn't crash. It looked fine. It displayed fine.
No,
It
that's
seemed like
fine.
a solution.
That's fine. I'm trying to think, where was it? Something like get pane ID, something like that. Oh, that's why I can't find it. It was in here. That's why I was using it before. Let's do a search for that get pane ID again. Okay, set pane property. You can see here. So I need to set a pane property. Now, what it does from an optimized point of view is if you pass in a pane ID of browse, then of course what it will do is go off and try and find what you know as browse. It needs to know what the raw object is beneath the surface. So it goes off and looks in its own internal queue, and it says browse is such and such an object, and then I can start using the properties and the methods and so on of that object. But if I pass in the raw object, so the first character starts with the reserved character, if I pass that in, it bypasses the basically get pane object. It bypasses the get on the queue and uses the raw passed in object, which is brilliant, because what that means is we're going to get a bit more speed out of it, rather than having to imagine you're setting loads of properties on a pane all at once. Then what it's going to go through is going, do a queue lookup, followed by do another queue lookup, followed by another queue lookup, and it's just going to take forever and a day. And it's exactly the same with the report control. So what we do is we say when it comes to things like this, have a look, and if if you're passing in a raw object as a pane ID, just use it, because that's where you're going to get your speed increase, that kind of thing. So that's why we're using it there. And I think I said on the thing, I can't refactor the code. It's just too big a task for the type of, for the, you basically have to have a look at the scenarios, and for the odd occasion you're going to get that data, it'd be more prudent to try and fix that than have to refactor the whole code and so on. Now, what you said there, the expand special characters, that's not a bad call. That's not bad call at all. Because what that will
I was just wondering, maybe after the meeting, if you could just when you have some time, just take a look and see is that an okay solution, and if so, then maybe you can release it next time. If you're okay with
I like
that.
So basically, expand special characters. It's mainly just a double quote because which is in there at the moment. Is there some others? Oh, that's HTML characters. I've got to say, I'm on the wrong one.
I think it was. Wait, 1 sec. I think it was. 1 sec. I think it was. No, not that one. I think it's expand special characters, but not the HTML one.
No, I've just jumped onto the next one. Yeah, I was on the HTML.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a special. Now, what that is
yeah, it's that one right there.
Yeah, and that is more for let's say you're setting somebody's name, and you've got Andy, and then in double quotes Noyantis Wilton. Okay, and that's what someone's got in their database. Now, of course, that can play havoc when it goes to set that property, because what it's going to come along is it's going to put a double quote in front of it. It's going to come across and say Andy space. It's going to find the double quote in the data coming in and think it's the termination of the actual string. So all you're going to actually set is Andy space instead of Andy double quote Noyantis space Wilton, that kind of thing. So it's going to come across. Where was that last one? So imagine, if you will, if I add Andy Noyantis Wilton, it's going to come across, and when it builds what it's setting in the background, it puts that in automatically. It's going to come across and add. Basically, it's going to add that to it and put a double on the end. Well, straight away, it's going to take that as the first. It's going to take that as a string to go and set, and that is going to be ignored. So the expand special characters just doubles up the thing. So basically, escapes it out, if you will. So it's like that needs to be double. That needs to be double, and that doesn't, because that gets added automatically. So all of a sudden your content becomes that. So from an end point of view for the data, it looks like so. So the class will do these things for us. That expand special characters is an optional parameter on some of the methods in the likes of the chillcat class and so on, but it can be called automatically in a lot of the other things. So let's have a look at expand special.
And I noticed, Andy, that I always call in the report control, all the data goes through that. So I figured I'd just piggyback off of that. You're already parsing through every character, so I'm not really adding extra.
No, you're fine there. So expand. I'm just going to have a look at where, because I can tell you it can go straight in now. I like the idea. I never thought of putting it in there. I was more concerned about putting it. You can see there, that's the thing I was on about. It's going to take the data and it has to wrap it in double quotes. Hence, why it needs to double it out and so on and so forth. I was more concerned about breaking our object IDs. Oh, and the reason you're getting your GPF, or you get the null, is because, goes back to what I had a minute ago, that is an example of a true object, and it will be able to get to that object, get its properties, get its data. Now this, whereas opposed to you've got some data coming in, something like Andy Wilton, and that being the first character. So it's taking that as an object ID, which means nothing to it, which ultimately means it's a null object, and then it's attempting, because the way I've coded it, because that is a true object, we can get to its methods and its properties, and we're not doing any checks, we're going straight to it and going accessing it. But that isn't a true object, so it's seeing it as a null, and then you're getting access to null pointer, which is a GPF. So that's why you're getting the GPF, which I'm sure you already knew. I'm just doing it for the point of the recording. But that's why you're getting the GPF and so on. So to jump back to this then, the expand special characters, it's called within there. Actually, it's only call within there. And I happen to know that that is only going through the columns of content data, not the IDs. So that's perfectly fine. That's a good call. We can put that in. Yeah, that's a really good call.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
let's put that in.
So if you like it, if you review it, you don't see any problem with it, maybe in your next release you could add that if possible.
I'm gonna go better. I'm
Definitely
gonna add it now for you.
Awesome.
Let me ask a question first.
Oh yeah, go on.
Okay, so we have this issue. It's typically on older data where we have GUIDs and they start with that character.
Right.
And so it's a GUID, and so we're putting it into the report control so we can find the record again. So I'm not sure quite where this is changing it or where it's saving it, but I need to be able to retrieve that back so it has that character as the first character again. Otherwise, I won't be able to find the original record. So I don't know if that's a thing there. Because I kind of thought of the same method as well, but you got to be able to read it back the same way that it went in, and that might apply to other reasons as well. But at least in our GUID situation.
So okay, that's fair. Yeah, John makes a fair point there. So what about? I can't do it in the raw set property because that is perfectly valid to put that into a particular field as an ID internally to another object. So that's perfectly valid to do that. Just trying to think if it's going in, could we space it out, but then on the way out when you go and get it, if it starts with space that, take it back out again, so as you're getting it, it brings you back the data as you kind of expected it.
That was my thoughts too. I just never got around to tracking the code down to where to put it and that kind of thing. This seems like a good spot to put it in. Then getting it out would be the other side of it.
It would have to go in the get property. So the set, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head then, because ultimately, let's jump to where that's being called. Expand. Oh, sorry, wrong one. So that's going through there. That's got to call that. Don't go through the set property. So that would have to basically expand it out. But then a get property, again within the common class. It would have to go in the get value. Okay, rather than we put that in quite blindly, let me do some tests for you there, just to make sure. So basically, we want the equivalent of use set for both of you, that, and for Alex, you've got data looking like so, and for John, you've got some GUIDs. So maybe I don't know if they're expanded out, but
16 characters in the first character.
Oh, you're in 16. All right, okay. I still use the expanded readable ones. You know, it's easier. I should use the smaller, I know, but especially from a compact data point of view. Okay, so we get the idea. Some GUID like so. So basically, going in, you want to be passing them like so, but in truth, it will be stored like that, which will stop any GPF should it come along. And when it comes back out, so that will ultimately go in like so. And then when it's coming back out, you will want it back, handing back to you like so. And the same with you. You want yours handing back to you as you found it.
Yep. And that would take care of my support department would be happy.
Fine.
They'll get these same as you've been having there with the crash on the report control. Then we got to find the record that's doing it, and most of the time it's the GUID. Once in a while, it's not. We have to dig through it.
Okay. Let me, Alex. I'm not going to put that change in just blindly. Let me come up with a bigger, longer term approach then, but make where one still works, because I still got to allow for me putting that in, and it looking like that and being stored like that. that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And if you want, I suppose you could also make it a checkbox where only like a certain box is set. Then going in, you do this, and then maybe even for John, another checkbox going out. That way, maybe people who don't care about it, they don't have to check it. I don't know. I'm just, just thinking that
We could put it on the
you
column
wanna,
definitions. We could put it on the column definitions, that kind of thing. But I think there's basically, yeah, you guys will be using basically getters and setters, if you will. So, set that so it's stored like so, and get that so you get it returned like so, that kind of thing. You'll be using those. From a speed point of view in the class, I might be going through a queue of data, and inside of that queue of data will be the object. So let's just the DockingPane, for example. Let's take a look at the pane itself. So the object there, I will want that stored as a true object, not being padded out with spaces, because that would, as I said in the email originally, putting things like that will either slow the whole thing down or break stuff. So I can't, I've got to take the more the solution what best fits all scenarios, that kind of thing. So I still need to maintain that kind of work, that kind of storage, but I don't use, if it's things like that, 9 times out of 10 I probably won't use a getter. I'll just go and get it raw out the queue, and so on, and I'll be storing those raw in the queue. So we might be okay. Definitely deserves a bit of checking first before we go off and just put it in, but that's fine. I can do that.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay, I am going to pass you a new comment though, Alex. So you're going to have to put your workaround in for your stuff back in again.
Sure, no problem.
Good job, Alex.
Okay. Thank you. And having published this, I'm not sure that my fix is good in the long run, but it was just something I was playing with on Friday, and it seemed to kind of work. And I just thought I, shared in the meeting and just get your take on it. And I understand there's no rush. I don't need it like today. It's just that kind of in the long run, it was just something we would like to have like a solution for, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the principle behind it. It's just we've got to cover. These are very crude, but we just got to cover those scenarios. We can't break the products. That's first and foremost. We've got to allow for your data in that kind of format, but we've also got to make sure that John's data still works as he would expect. That kind of thing. And it's not just yours and John's. I'm just saying those are examples of the scenarios we've got to cover, and so on. I didn't realise. You see, John's just opened my eyes there. I didn't realise with the GUIDs that that would be a common character. But that isn't a character of my choice. I think I said in the original email that's not a character of my choice, and so on. And that is. Can't believe I can't find it in the Clarion help. It's typical, isn't it? But it definitely. They should mention it somewhere, because they actually in the Clarion. I've read it in the past, so if you do some digging, it's definitely in there, and it will tell you that basically that character is a reserved character, and it expects that to be the first character to give you the object. Maybe it's on the OLE.
I mean, it's clear from the code that this is what CodeJock is sending you.
Well, it's not CodeJock. No, that's my point. This isn't CodeJock. It's just a regular object. I think a long time ago. Crikey. Is it on conferences and events? CIDC 2011. Let's have a look at that. That was a long time ago. No. John, when did I do the that's collections of data, conference presentations? No, we did one on just regular OCX usage. We didn't use CodeJock, we didn't use NBit. I think we actually used Microsoft Media Player. And it might be on my test system actually. Testing templates. No, it's not there. That's going to annoy me. I've got a test thing just to show you what the kind of thing you should expect. Crank it on. OCX tester. Masters examples. Okay, okay. So this was something we did a long time ago, and it was actually sent out as part what you could use. So that's using. Oh, that's not a very good one. I need to know what we got. The start. No, I haven't got that object. Typical. Don't suppose I've got any notes on there. Just 1 second. Just going to get so you get an idea of what the objects are, so we know it's not necessarily like say it's not a code jock, it's not a thing. It's out-of velocity returning the controls tools. If I put let's have an overlay on there. I just want to know what the server is. So let's just choose a server. Something like media player. I don't want to use CodeJock because you'll think it's just them. So I'm going to choose a Microsoft one. That's movie player, that's somebody else, but I don't know where that's going to. Let's have a look at that. Something in Microsoft one, right? Okay. Okay. So I've just started a COM object there to the Microsoft shell. Now, straight away, it's returned us what the raw object is. So I can start issuing commands against that object now. But you can see that's the address. That's the object ID that's been returned. And notice the first character. So it's not a code jock. It's not a NBit or VisCom or anything like that. It's not even Microsoft. It's how Soft Velocity are interpreting that and passing it back to us. So it's their character. Maybe it's an industry standard. I'm not sure. Don't particularly think it is personally, but it might be. But ultimately, that's what it is as far as we're concerned from a Clarion point of view. Hence why we're using that character. So if there's any special characters used, then and we do some in our control. But we'll prefix them with something like that. So you can see here I had one called rec ID. So that's our track. So I'll prefix it with 4 square brackets, the ID I need, and that. And these are all going to be internal IDs, that kind of thing. So I've got a rec ID, I've got a track ID. I know the calendar has various things like that, but we prefix them with those, that kind of thing. So we're not really going to encroach on anyone's data. I can't imagine anybody being called something like, well, someone having the name. And if someone's called that, then fine. I think they're unlucky and they want to speak to their parents. But if someone's called that, then we can work around it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah. Well, I said in the email to Christy, it's like it's not me. It's not I don't even think it's